Hello and welcome into our Corn-Fed Sports in the Morning for our Friday morning, where, like we said yesterday, we're continuing in the stream of doing broadcast every single day. So we're going to have a Friday morning show that you guys can get used to. I'm Pat Radigan. Joining me today, we got Matt Duran. Going to talk a little bit of football, a little bit of soccer, and then just some other things for the weekend. So we'll jump right in. We got a Corn-Fed 5. So big news in the world of Husker football. So we'll start just kind of looking forward to the Illinois game tomorrow.
Yeah, obviously Taylor Martinez ruled out for tomorrow. Tommy Armstrong going to be getting the start, and it's kind of good and bad. I mean, not good and bad. You don't want a player to get hurt, but last week against South Dakota State, you kind of had the feeling that the quarterbacks were going to do good, and so you're finally going to see both Tommy and Ron getting tested against a Big Ten defense tomorrow.
Yeah, and I think that when you look at the way they have it set up, they said that Tommy will get strong and then that Ron will be ready to go as well, which doesn't mean, like we said yesterday, it doesn't mean it's necessarily going to be the same kind of two quarterback system, and it's not going to be the same kind of look. So I think it'll be whether or not Tommy has a string, and whether they're going to pull him quickly if he makes some mistakes, or if things kind of struggle, or whether or not they're just going to give him a chance to play something through that. So that's just kind of what I'm looking forward to see, is how much of a leash they're giving him. But quarterback play is going to be a big part of Nebraska tomorrow as their offense tries to match up with Illinois. We'll move on and just talk about some overall keys here in our second of our Corn-Fed 5 here. So we just kind of look at the game tomorrow. I mean, obviously defense is going to be whether or not Nebraska can make an impact, get the blowout win, or do any of those different kind of things. So what are some of the keys that you see for tomorrow's game?
Well, on defense, and we talked about this yesterday, the Mike linebacker spot with Santos and Banderas, kind of just that whole who's going to step up, take that leadership role. And also looking at the safety spot, because last week Papucha said that the safety spot opposite Cooper with Green and with Jackson wasn't really up to their expectations. And so Charles Jackson, the redshirt freshman from Texas, is now going to be getting possibly a shot. He's number 2 behind Cooper. So he was very highly touted coming in. So we'll see how they do on the field. And Papucha said this, that that they think they've gotten better, but until they see live game action, you really don't know.
I think my key for the defense is going to be controlling the outsides. And you see that when they pinch down, everything has to go inside out. And when players are able to get upfield and get outside, then that's when you see linebackers fill the outside and they cut back and make plays up the middle. So it all starts with controlling their edges and just kind of having that main gap responsibility, and then everybody can build off it. So those are just a couple things I'm looking forward to. But we're also going to have a football pregame show tomorrow morning. So we're going to actually do our own little version of College Game Day, so that'll be exciting. So we're not going to spoil all the football headlines until then, but for now, we'll move on to soccer. And Nebraska had a big win yesterday.
They did another big win, like you said, 9-2-1 now against Iowa, 2-1, 2-1 win yesterday. You were there. What did you see from them?
The thing that I think is important to consider here is not just that they got the win, but an Iowa team you might not think is, Nebraska just moved up in the rankings. You'd think that Michigan's going to be the big game this weekend. Iowa comes into the match with a 9-2 record, and so they had a game record. Nebraska's now got a better overall record. I mean, Iowa's 1-3 in conference play so far, but they've played Illinois, they've played Michigan, and so to go out there and get that win, and not just get the win, but they were missing Jalen Oderman in the center defense and J.C. Johnson up on top, and so a couple players down, but they still manufactured goals. They still got generated a huge number of corner kicks. Had a couple players, Ari Romero, Jordan Jackson, even Mamie Conroy playing the full game, and so just some of those people putting in the minutes and just keeping the pressure on. I mean, it was big time to see the starting 11 really show up like that, and see some of the key players show up, and to see them just in the end there. I mean, they're throwing legs, they're throwing bodies. I've never seen a ball just sit under a pile of people in the box like it was yesterday, but in those last corner kicks, Nebraska just blanketed the ball, and then when the ball finally found a little bit of space, they were the ones that got the foot out of it and just kind of got it out of the box. And so there's just a lot of big things to take away from it. It was a real physical game. The best part was asking assistant coach Peter Underwood, who's seen the English version of football, if it was as physical as it looked. He kind of shrugged it off, like, not really. I mean, you got girls hitting the track and crying, and there's some pretty big plays that happened yesterday, and some physical plays and some yellow cards dished out. So it was a intense game, but it only picks up more for Michigan on Sunday. So we'll look forward to that. But for now, we'll move on to another big weekend for our Nebraska women's sport in our fourth.
John Cook earlier this week said that the ante kind of goes up every week now, playing ranked teams each week. Kind of compared the Big Ten volleyball to some SEC football. So what's your take on his comments there, and then also about this weekend?
It's hard not to say that's obviously going to be the case with Minnesota, top 10 team who's caused Nebraska some problems. I got to actually go up to the barn and see Nebraska storm back against the Minnesota team that had a couple of these same faces on it. So since Nebraska has made it to the Big Ten, there's been some back and forth with these two teams. So two real physical teams. I mean, obviously, Nebraska got some more options. They got a little bit more versatility. Coach Cook has kind of honed their attack down to 3 different players they set with Minnesota. So it's going to be whether or not Nebraska can execute its game plan and really concentrate on the pins or concentrate in the middle when they know where the ball is going to be at. And obviously, every time it comes down to passing, when you have a team that's as potent as Minnesota at the net, and when you really have to have good lanes to hit, and you got to have high hitting numbers to get through a team like this. So if they're able to figure out their matchups well, if they're able to pass well, and keep the pressure on serving without getting too many errors, I mean, obviously those are just generic keys for everything. But I think when it comes down to it, passing to set up hitting against this Minnesota team, as well as just being able to get blockers in the right place and put pressure on those hitters, are going to be 2 of the big keys for the match this weekend against Minnesota. Then you turn around against Wisconsin, who may not seem like the most glamorous, but Wisconsin is one of the only teams besides Nebraska and besides Michigan State who knocked off Penn State that's still undefeated in Big Ten play. So Nebraska's got 2 teams, and so I mean they might not be there coming in tomorrow night or how things shake out coming into the match, but Wisconsin made it through that first weekend with a 2-0 record, and so some of the teams who've done that, I mean that's an impressive thing for them to be able to pull off. And so it'll be a big weekend for Nebraska volleyball, and they're back in the top 10 now. Let's just see if they can move up there and stay in the rankings.
Yeah, no easy week for Nebraska volleyball
from here on out.
There'll
be nothing comes easy. So.
Yeah. Moving on to our fifth topic, we've got some spring sports in fall action. We've got golf, we've got men's, women's tennis, we've got baseball starting. They've got a red-white game, or later in the month. Also softball, they've got a doubleheader tonight and a doubleheader on Sunday. What are you looking for from the spring sports in the fall?
It's just a time where you can really get to know some of the new faces, get to see some of the scores out there. I mean, a lot of these sports, even the golfs and the tennis, I mean, they play all over the place to start out, and so it's kind of hard to get a beat on the teams. And the weather's nice enough where they can have some competitions around here. And softball too. I mean, last year I would have been lost coming into the season if we didn't have the spring or the fall season, and just kind of getting to know the people and trying to get an understanding of this team. And I mean, you saw a lot of what led them to the Women's College World Series come up last year in fall play when you see some of the freshmen come through, even with the senior leadership, even with the juniors that they had on last year's team. And so just seeing those kind of dynamics come through and just seeing them step up in individual tournaments, and seeing a women's tennis player takes the number 2 seed, who's probably going to be a top 5 individual ranked player in the country, taking her to a couple tough sets in women's tennis. I mean, there's some of those things that just give you a good idea of what they're going to look like coming out. And Nebraska's had some big performances so far. They all those sports wrap up in the spring, so they play fall spring. I mean, softball is more of an exhibition season, baseball is more of an exhibition in the fall. But I mean, just to see them, see that fire, and to hear the players just kind of get used to what their mantra for the year is going to be. It's a fun time of year to just be able to look ahead a couple months and not just be overwhelmed by how fast everything's moving along. So softball, I'll actually get to go to my first softball game of the fall this weekend, so that's kind of exciting for me. And I'm a big softball guy, so we'll see how it goes, and we'll see if the weather can hold out or if it's not too cold or not too miserable.
Let's hope so.
Around these parts. All right, well, we're actually going to take a quick break here. We got some commercials. We got some actual different segments here for our show for this morning. So we'll take a quick break, and we'll be back with our segment 2, where we take a unique look at tomorrow's Nebraska-Illinois game.
We do, yeah.